Who are these white privileged people? The New World has been populated by millions of people from all over the Old World. Millions were white. Many were poor, starving, uneducated, attacked, and often ridiculed at home. Ukrainian immigrants make up one of the largest groups to come to Canada. Millions had been kept in a state of third world poverty, compounded by a drought and a famine. Many Ukrainians were farmers who came with nothing but the clothes on their back, no education, and very little money. They went west to farms that had been promised to them, but the land was not arable. They had to remove the rocks and the trees. Many Ukrainians also arrived during the Great Depression, but they eventually did find work in industry, forestry, and mining, with most of them settling in Ontario. The Irish, they arrived during the first half of the 19th century. Many landed in Newfoundland, where they worked as fishermen and lived in the kind of dire poverty that they had hoped to escape when they had left home. They provided cheap labor in the cities, as well as working on the many public construction projects underway at the time. The Great Famine of the late 1840s drove between 1.5 and 2 million Irish out of Ireland. They were destitute. They arrived in large numbers, in poor physical condition, coming over in what has now been described as coffin ships. They took this trip in order to be free of British oppression. 1,100 died from typhus and other diseases. Those who did survive supplied cheap labor and helped fuel the economic expansion of the 1850s and 1860s. They were poor and resented because of the urban and rural squalor in which they were forced to live. In 1858, a Globe columnist described the Irish as lazy, improvident, and unthankful. They fill our poorhouses and our prisons. In the 20th century, there were signs that read, "No Irish need apply." Jewish refugees tried to come to Canada and the USA prior to the Shoah. The Jewish people are not white. Rather, they come in many colors and races, and 90% of them can trace their DNA to the Levant, to Israel. Those who made it to these shores were mostly penniless, grateful to be out of Europe and Russia. Russian Jews emigrated seeking relief from ghetto life and the pogroms of Western Russia. Canada was rife with anti-Semitism in the 30s and 40s. Some swimming pools in the Toronto area read, "No dogs or Jews allowed." Tensions exploded in the Christie Pitts riots of 1933 and in a 1946 Gallup poll, well after the horrors of Auschwitz were widely known. Canadians were asked to make a list of undesirable immigrants. Jews finished in second place behind the Japanese who had attacked Pearl Harbor. There were 6 waves of Polish immigrants to Canada between 1854 and 1993. Numerous were illiterate peasants, hard-working, religious. They built farms. Others worked on railway construction or in the coal mines. The Irish were called Micks. The Jews were Kikes. These are just some of the white, privileged people who came to Canada and America. Their privilege, getting out of their old world countries with the promise of freedom in the New World, coming to this new place with gratitude and hope. What they did not pack in their bags were victimhood or a sense of entitlement.